Hello. Hello. Yeah. Hello. Microphone test. Yeah, tunajaribu. Yeah, tunajaribu. Microphone test. Tunajaribu. Yeah. Hello. Tunajaribu. Microphone test. Tunajaribu. Yeah. Tunajaribu. Yeah, tunajaribu. Microphone test. Tunajaribu. Iko sawa? Inakatakata. Hello. Tunajaribu. Microphone test. Tunajaribu. Aló, 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 aló. Which one, Michael? Yes. Good morning, colleagues. You're all welcome to the African Court, and thank you for coming to the court. Just a light reminder that channel number 1 is English, Arabic is channel number 3, Swahili is channel number 5, Portuguese is channel number 4. and French is channel number 4. Thank you very much. Good morning again. Informed, once more. I've confused people, so I'll repeat again. English channel number 1, French channel number 2, Arabic channel number 3, Portuguese channel number 4, and Kiswahili channel number 5. Asanteni sana.
Arabic. Arabic channel 3. Arabic, can you speak? Yes, I can hear you very clear. Yes, this is Jack. Let me come. Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. You might have already felt some changes in terms of motion. It's just to inform you that our guest of honor is indoors, and that sends a message that in shortly we shall be commencing our ceremony for the opening of the 2023 judicial year, and you are all mostly welcome. I want to come back to a few announcements that have been already made in terms of languages. For those who are using headsets, English is channel 1, French is channel 2, Arabic is channel 3, Portuguese channel 4, and Swahili, the mother tongue, the language which is gaining African popularity, is on channel 5. Again, I wish to welcome you to this special opening of 2023 judicial year, and you are all most welcome. Thank you. The brass band continues entertaining us I want to ensure that the channels are properly set. May I request those who are using channel 1 to go to channel 1 and ensure they can get me? Channel 1. Those on channel 1, please confirm if you are receiving signal. Channel 1. Channel 1, English.
Please also confirm if they can hear the interpreters.
Parler en français pour ceux qui ont besoin de la traduction en anglais puissent tester le signal.
So for those who will be listening in English, channel 1, can you hear us? If you can hear us, please raise your right hand.
Channel 1.
Just raise your right hand if you can hear us. Just to indicate.
Si vous me recevez au canal 1,
If you can hear the protocol officer, please raise your right hand. If you can hear the interpreters, also raise your right hand. Thank you.
Channel 2, French. Those needing channel 2 French, if you can receive the signal, please raise your hand, right hand. Thank you. Arabic, Assalamu alaikum. You getting me? Assalamu alaikum. Arabic, Portuguese, bom dia. Portuguese, are you there? Getting the right signal? Thank you. Swahili. Waheshimiwa mabibi na mabwana, mnanipokea Swahili?
Trust him. Trust him.
Salamu za Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Na kazi endelee. Asante. Asante. Kuna watu ambao hawana headset. Headset, please move around and provide those in need of headsets with them. Thank you. Headsets, headsets. Headsets. Asante sana. Hebu walete wakae pale mbele. They are coming. They are entering. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, shortly, the procession of the honorable judges of the African Court on Human and People's Rights will commence, and the guest of honor will also be right behind the procession. And when they come in, I will kindly advise that we all stand in salute of our guest of honor. Thank you. Thank you. The brass band, when our honorable guest of honor is in and the judge is in, will immediately go through the anthems. We start with Tanzanian anthem, then East African anthem, and then the African Union anthem, in that order. Thank you. Torera. Yes. Brass band, thank you. Thank you so much. We're waiting for arriving guests to take their seats. And then the procession of the honorable judges and our guest of honor will follow. Thank you so much. As we remain standing, may I request the brass band to perform the Tanzanian anthem. Thank you. East African anthem. African Union anthem. Thank you so much. You may be seated, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, Dr. Philip Isdor Mpango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, and our very distinguished guest of honor, Honorable Lady Justice Imani Dawood Aboud, President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Damas Daniel Ndumbaro, Minister of Constitutional and Legal Affairs of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable John V.K. Mongela, the Arusha Regional Commissioner, Excellencies, Ambassadors and High Commissioners accredited in the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Lady Justice Siofra Oleri, President of the European Court of Human Rights, and all other distinguished guests attending this opening virtually. Honorable Joseph Ntakarutimana, Speaker of the East African Legislative Assembly, Honorable Fortune Charumbira, President of the Pan-African Parliament, and all other heads of organs and institutions of the African Union, Honorable Justice Blaise Chikaya, Vice President of the African Court, Honorable Judges of the African Court, Honorable Justice Nestor Kayobera, Judge President of the East African Court of Justice, Honorable Judges of the East African Court of Justice, Honorable President of the International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals, Honorable Justice Matthew Paua Mhina Mwaimu, Chairperson of the Tanzania Human Rights Commission and Good Governance, Ambassador Salah Hamad, Acting Head of the African Governance Architecture and the Senior Human Rights Expert, Honorable Presidents of Law Societies and Associations in the United Republic of Tanzania, Mr. Donald Omondi Dea, Chief Executive Officer of the Pan-African Lawyers Union, Ms. Sophie Ebi, Coordinator of the Coalition for an Effective African Court on Human and People's Rights, distinguished guests in the legal profession, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor to welcome you to this opening and take you through the program for key highlights of the program. On the program, we have goodwill speeches from partners of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. And these speeches are going to be followed by the opening remarks by our president, the president of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, and then shall come the very most expected speech of the day, which is the keynote address by our distinguished guest of honor. And then the program will conclude with group photo and refreshments. Without much ado, I will now invite those who have goodwill speeches to commence to deliver their speeches. And I want to take this opportunity to invite Ms. Sophia Ebi, Coordinator of the Coalition for an Effective African Court on Human and People's Rights, to come forward. Excuse me, Sophie. There is a welcome address by the registrar. I'm very sorry. Welcome address by the registrar of the court, Dr. Robert Eno. And after Dr. Robert Eno, I also understand there is a special activity which was not on the program that has come to my attention. We have a poet, a special poet, in honor of our very distinguished guest. And I will invite the person who has the poet to perform it. Thank you. Yes, you can come. Yes, you can come to this podium.
Asante sana Bwana Emmanuel. Mheshimiwa Daktari Philip Isdo Mpango,
Excellency Dr. Philip Isdo Mpango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Judge Board, President of the African Court, Honorable Damas Numbaro, Minister of Constitution and Legal Affairs of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable John Mongela, Regional Commissioner of Arusha, Honorable Otin Charumira, President of African Court. Ladies and gentlemen, protocol has been observed.
Bonjour, le peuple africain.
Good morning.
Morning, Africans. Good morning, Africa. I'm Dr. Robert, Registrar of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. On behalf of the Registry of the Court, on my personal behalf, I would like to wish you all and your relatives the best wishes for the new year, and I would like to welcome you all to this solemn ceremony, the opening of the judicial year of the African Court on Human and People's Rights for 2023. We are very happy to welcome so many of you to the seat of the court and a bigger number online. You are all welcome. The opening of the judicial year of the court, which started last year, has become an annual event. Its objective is not only to mark the beginning of the judicial year of the court, but also to sensitize the African populace on the existence and on the work of the court. Nearly 2 decades after the activities of the court started, we could affirm without any fear of contradiction that less than 40% of the continent's population for whom the court was created is aware of its existence. And even a lesser number is aware of its work and how they could seize the court to ensure that their rights are protected.
It's one way to bring the court and indeed bring justice closer to the people of Africa. So on this special occasion, we are glad to welcome the entire continent to be part of this ceremony and to announce that your court, the African Court on Human and People's Rights, for the year 2023, will be working under the theme, integrating the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems. We welcome all human rights stakeholders, in particular member states of the African Union, to work closely with the African Court to enhance the protection of human rights on the continent. Although member states are the primary duty bearers, the protection and promotion of human rights remains our collective responsibility. Once again, marhaba, welcome, bienvenue, bienvenido, bienvenido, karibu, asanteni sana.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robert Eno. I didn't know you could deliver a speech in Swahili. I would have introduced you as in Swahili. Now I want to invite our special poet. And this poet is Hamisi Rajabu Zumba. Mr. Zumba has a special poet dedicated to our distinguished guest of honor. Mr. Zumba, you come this side where I am standing to this podium and you shall perform your poem. Thank you so much.
Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Kichwa cha habari cha shairi hili kinasema heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. na shairi hili nitalituni kwa wimbo wa taarabu ulioimbwa kwa wimbo wa Kihaya. Sasa nitaileta hapa. Mheshimiwa Makamu Dr. P. Mpango, nimeishika kalamu ya urembo wa mpingo, hapa nilipotimamu kwenye hili nzuri jengo, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Mheshimiwa Ndumbaro ni waziri wa sheria, unaziondoa kero na vyake viashiria, matokeo hapo kasoro haraka wakaribia, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Rais wa mahakama pamoja na himaya Imani Abudi Mami na Bise Chikaya Mbote moto na moto abengisha imani mmesimama kwenye hii yenu kaya, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Uni utangulizi walilango shairi, sasa ninapiga mbizi kwa kuliweka vizuri ili liwe simulizi wala hilo na hari, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza tabia. Ulipokari ya kiti umefanya mambo mengi, haukupenda kuketi ukafanya ya msingi, unaongoza kwa dhati na mikakati ni mingi, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Elimu unaboresha, afya pamoja na maji na umeme wa kukesha maeneo ya vijiji, nani atakaebisha vijijini kama miji, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Wewe ni amiri jeshi makini na shujaa, umedhibiti majeshi hadi yamekaa vema, ili halina ubishi nani ataekataa, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Na kwenye mambo ya haki sheria wazingatia, sifa unastahiki mahakama wazijali, na kupa sifa lukuki unajali Kiswahili, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Na kwenye miundombinu SGR imara maarufu jitunu kuleta umeme bora, litasaidia vinu vya viwanda barabara, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. FCHPR ni mahakama ya haki, ni bora sana, ni bora, haina na mtu chuki, watu wote hibani, binadamu si samaki, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Wapongeza mahakama kuzisogeza huduma zile za kimahakama, ili kweli jambo jema, na haki zitasimama kwa hekima na huruma, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Pia nitawatambua majaji waheshimiwa, mbeleni nitawachambua na saluti watapewa, na ninyi mtatambua heshima waliopewa, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Na yuko Ben Kioko ni Kenya anatokea, Kenya ndio nchi yake, pia saluti pokea, nikipata mwaliko ipo siku utatokea, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Pia huko Tunisia Rafa Ben, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, yuko pia kitini ametulia, pia anashuhudia mkutano wa sheria, hotuba atachangia, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Ntia Maondo Kameruni magharibi Afrika, na yupo ukumbini sauti anasikia, hata uko uponini mawimbi watasikia, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Na Erozi Chizumira Mwibanji karibu kupokea, anazihudumisha mila Malawi anatokea, anawasiwala yupo tu anaongea, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Bensao Achifika, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, anatoka na Algeria kaskazi Afrika, na anashuhudia, na muona anacheka kwa pamoja shangilia, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Na Ezi Bakomeni Stella wa Nigeria, kwa kweli yupo makini katika hii sheria, kaskazini na kusini watu wamshangilia, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Na Edumisa Sabeza umukonto wesizwe Afrika ya Kusini Johannesburg, hasa walipo makini kwa Mandela hasa alofuta ukoloni, eko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Na Sakomo Libomari ndipo anatoka na kusalimia jambo, Kiswahili natamka, leo utaona mambo ni Arusha yanatoka. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa, bonjour. Na Denisi Dominiki anatoka Ghana, heshima zako lukuki ninatoa sana sana, sizitoi kishabiki bali ni kwa kiungwana. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Upande wa protoko Emmanuel Nkuru ni meza na kupa heshima yako, ni profesa mkuu, Simba ni naibu wake, kazi inakuwa lulu. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Upande wa usajili yupo Daktari Eno, gresi wa kiokweli naye apendeza mno, nafanya kwa akili kazi nzuri mno mno. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Na Profesa Horesi bin Aji Rohoni waongoza kisayansi kitengo chako makini, kwa hii yako nafasi Mungu atakuauni. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Pia naye Meja Kwame wa kitengo cha ulinzi kama simba ungurume, kuwakomesha waizi wasipenye kwenye ngome ili kufanya wizi. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Hapa sasa vibwagizo vyake Dr. Samia na vipenda mzo, mimi navifurahia, kwangu mimi ni pendezo hasa ninaposikia. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Ni mwana kulitafuta, pia mwana kulipata, ni ujumbe tunapata, tuacheni kwenda puta. Heka utapata, bora kucheza karata. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Lingine ukizingua naye hata kuzingua, nani ataezingua anataka kupungua. Mwasemaji wazingua, zumbe nipo mzigua. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Asanteni watumishi FCHPR wote ninyi ni wacheshi, kwa kazi mko imara, mnafanya utumishi tena ulio bora. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa. Na jaji kiongozi ni Mustafa Siami, karibu utupe kazi wenzangu pamoja nami, na semina elekezi ili tupate usomi. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza tamia. Makatibu mahususi mesameti na jamani, msiwe na wasiwasi, salamu nacho jamani, Mungu awape wepesi mfanikiwe kazini. Heko Dr. Samia kuliongoza taifa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zumba, our very brave poet. Our very brave poet. Amepata zawadi. Zumbe amepata zawadi. Hongera bwana Zumbe, hongera sana, hongera sana. If I were to attempt to do a summary of his poet, Zumbe is thanking Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan for her leadership and governance of the United Republic of Tanzania. And the same gratitude is also extended to the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Philip Istor Mpango, for also playing a wonderful role in the governance of Tanzania. The same gratitude is extended to the Honorable Damas Daniel Ndumbaro for his governance of the judiciary of Tanzania and what he's doing to bring the necessary reforms. The same gratitude is also extended to the Regional Commissioner, Mheshimiwa Mongela, for his leadership in our region which is hosting the African Court. And then I could hear Bwana Zumbe sending greetings to all the judges of the African Court, one by one, and greeting them in their language, in their mother tongue. What a wonderful achievement, Mr. Zumbe. Congrats. Mr. Zumbe speaks all the African languages that we have in the court. And he did not stop there. Mr. Zumbe extended gratitude to all the heads of divisions and units of the registry of the court, starting from the registrar, the deputy registrar, the head of legal division, the protocol that I'm standing for this morning, and the security and all the other divisions. And through these heads of divisions and units, Mr. Zumbe is sending his gratitude to all the staff of the court. And we thank you so much for this, Mr. Zumbe. Thank you for the poem. After this short summary, and I hope the Swahili-speaking community is in agreement that my summary is genuine and can be signed. Thank you so much. I now want to invite my sister, Sophia Ebi, to come and deliver her goodwill message. Sophie, again, apologies for anticipating on your speech. I suspect it contains a lot of expected words that can push the work of the court forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. His Excellency Dr. Philip Isdori Mpango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Lady Justice Imani Aboud, President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Justice Blaise Chikaya, Vice President of the African Court, Honorable Judges of the African Court, Honorable Registrar, Deputy Registrar, and all members of the African Court, Honorable Presidents of the Regional and Sub-Regional Courts, Honorable Chairperson of the African Union, and representatives of the African Union organs present, Honorable States, representatives and diplomatic delegates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. First and foremost, the Coalition for an Effective African Court on Human and People's Rights congratulates the African Court for this important initiative, which is a continuation of what it has set to do since last year when it convened the inaugural opening of the judicial year under the theme, The African Court and the Africa We Want. This year, the theme of the second opening of the judicial year, integrating the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems, is yet a commendable one. An approach that integrates regional and international human rights norms and standards into national systems and policies is an essential way to show commitment and respect of states and governments' obligations to regional and international treaties. It is nevertheless an effective way of enabling compliance with decisions of regional and international human rights, judicial and quasi-judicial bodies, and notably decisions of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. As civil society organizations, it is our responsibility and obligation to play our respective roles in the integration process, in the realization of the African Court that we want. Among many other roles, this should include creating awareness and popularize the work of the African Court, participating in constructive engagements and dialogues with our respective governments, as well as with non-state actors in the promotion of the African Court and its functions, and also offer constructive and critical assessment of the work of the African Court. Over the years, we at the African Court Coalition have progressively been executing our objective of advocating for an independent and effective African Court on Human and People's Rights through various activities and initiatives that include dialogues with state and non-state actors. Therefore, we commend the initiative of intergenerational dialogues that the African Court is geared to enhance this year, especially with young legal professionals. I am also happy to inform you that with our continued engagement with different stakeholders through various activities, the coalition has also planned to enhance engagement with young legal professionals this year in the efforts to increase awareness and visibility of the African Court. This is to show our continued support in the work of the court and in fulfilling our mission to mobilize and coordinate the diverse stakeholders of the African Court to support building of an institutionally strong and independent court that delivers effectively and efficiently on its mandate, and one that is effectively serving and recognized by all the peoples of Africa and their states. It is fair enough to acknowledge that integrating the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems is a progressive process that requires efforts, expertise, and resources, especially by states and governments. But where there's a will, there's always a way, and commitments and obligations are meant to be fulfilled. We would thus like to call upon all relevant stakeholders to be part of the process and take all the necessary measures towards the integration of international and regional human rights mechanisms, standards, and norms into national systems to enhance the effectiveness of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, from state parties of the African Court Protocol, the relevant African Union organs, national and independent human rights institutions, the academia, law societies, the media, civil society organizations, and the general public. Last but not least, we cannot be conversing about integrating the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems without being mindful of the fact that only 8 out of 33 state parties to the African Court Protocol have deposited Article 34.6 declaration to allow direct access to the African Court, and only 33 out of 55 African Union countries have ratified the African Court Protocol. This has to change. For if we have to move and make notable and substantial changes, we have to move collectively and together. No one should be left behind in the commitments of human rights duties and obligations in Africa. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ebi. It's now my singular honor to call upon Mr. Kari Abdul Bagi, who will be addressing this gathering virtually. The technical bench, if they can connect Mr. Bagui to deliver his goodwill message. Thank you. Julius, is he coming? Okay. Mr. Bagui, can you please unmute your microphone? Unmute your microphone to be heard, please.
My mic is unmuted. Sorry. There. Are you hearing me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. And most welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. Excellence, Monsieur Dr. Philippe Mpango, Vice-President
Dr. Philippe Mpango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Lady Justice Imani Aboud, President of the African Court, Honorable Judges of the Court, members of government and ambassadors, the President of the East African Court of Justice, the President of the European Court of Human Rights, Honorable Dr. Robert Eno, Registrar of the Court, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen.
Greetings from the leadership of the Pan-African Lawyers Union, and particularly those from our ex-COP Executive Committee of Pan-African Lawyers Union. Greetings from our PALU's CO and PALU's Secretariat staff. It's a great honor for PALU and for me personally to be invited to deliver a goodwill message on this important occasion of the opening of the African Court 2002-3 Judicial Year and Intergenerational Dialogue. To date, the court has delivered judgment in 172 contentious cases and 15 advisory opinions. For a young court such as this, it is no mean feat. PALU, having litigated most cases before this honorable court, is extremely appreciative of how much the court has grown in all areas. The court has year after year delivered justice to the African people with utmost dedication and commitment, and for that, we say thank you. Furthermore, we commend and welcome the efforts of the court in resolving the ever-difficult issue of non-implementation of its decision by state parties. The amendment to the rules of procedure of the court are a step in the right direction, and we'll call on all other stakeholders who can assist to join in the effort to make implementation a reality. This cannot be done by the court alone, but by joint efforts of all stakeholders, and PALU is willing and really ready to play its part in this fight. Distinguished guests, African Union law is not foreign law, it's our law. Unfortunately, it seems in most national courts, it is taken as a foreign law, and hence jurisprudence arising from it is largely ignored. We must advocate and find ways of ensuring that the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms forms an integral part of the national systems of jurisprudence. Distingués invités, mesdames et messieurs, pour que les juridictions régionales et nationales atteignent leurs objectifs communs,
ladies and gentlemen, for the national and international courts to attain their goal, they must be able to work as partners. At several levels, dialogue is transparent and it's a matter of reciprocal exchange. And this helps indeed to gain the confidence of people and promoting the judiciary. We should be able to exchange our judicial experiences and domesticate the decisions from regional and international courts. The annual conference of the Pan-African Lawyers Union, the annual conference of the Pan-African Lawyers Union, which will be taking place in Livingston in Zambia, will bring together all the leaders of law institutions, and it will be a forum to identify the weaknesses and strengths and to be able to detect the opportunities which are underutilized or not, or even not being exploited, which could be used. It should be noted that in spite of all the challenges which the court has faced, when some countries withdrew their declaration recognizing the jurisdiction of the court, the will of the court to call on states in cases of violation has not been reduced. We, as a court and as a continent, we should try to see how we could strengthen the work of the court so that its jurisdiction should be defended against political interference. That way, no African will be prevented from having access to the court because a government is not satisfied with the decision taken by the court. I would like to add that the time is now to seek for new methods to bring the African populace to understand the importance of regional and continental courts and the importance for our governments to defend and depend on this so that this court will be able to render justice quickly, efficiently, and effectively. We have to work to ensure that citizens are conscious and call on the government to render accounts. We have to work to sensitize the public on the work of the court and to inform the public on the opinions of the court. Rome was not built in a day. And I would want to say that I have strong hopes in the future of the court, and it will continue to prosper and to serve the people over time. At the time when the judicial year is opening here, the African Court, the Pan-African Lawyers Union, on behalf of the lawyers and the institution, wish this institution a fruitful year. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baggy.
Savais pouvait révéler au
Professor Franz.
Il allait trop vite.
Director for the Center for Human Rights,
University of
University of Pretoria.
Lui aussi, en fait, il va parler en anglais, mais parfois, il parle en français parce qu'il comprend.
Professor Franz, you're welcome to take the floor. Apologies for a technical challenge. I understand there is a disconnection of our speaker. I want to check if the next speaker, as we wait for Professor Franz Villion to be connected again, it's now my singular honor and privilege to invite the Honorable President of the Pan-African Parliament, Honorable Fortune Charumbira, for his goodwill message. Honorable, you're most welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Asante sana. Now the registrar did show that he can present in Kiswahili. Mimi natoka Zimbabwe. Ninaongea Kiswahili kidogo. Nataka mwalimu anifundishe niongee vizuri sana. Registrar anifundishe. Asante sana. But because my Swahili is not advanced, for the president, I would say His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of, the Deputy President, the Vice, or use the word Vice, the Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Philip Isdo Mpango. I fully recognize you. Then I go to the other list of the registrar. Mheshimiwa Judge Imani, Raisi wa Mahakama ya Afrika. Mheshimiwa Damas Daniel Dumbaro, Waziri wa Katiba na Sheria wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Mheshimiwa John Mongela, mkuu wa mkoa wa Arusha. Mabibi na mabwana, all protocols observed. Mimi naitwa Charumbira Chief, Raisi wa Bunge la Afrika. First of all, I bring you warm, very warm, and fraternal greetings from the entire membership of the Pan-African Parliament, of which you are aware that all member states of Africa deploy 5 MPs. Each country deploys 5 into the Pan-African Parliament, and bring greetings from all the 275 MPs who belong to the Pan-African Parliament from all the countries And let me begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to the President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Lady Justice Imani Abu, for extending an invitation to the Pan-African Parliament to deliver a message of solidarity during the official opening of the judicial calendar of the African Court. The recognition you've accorded the Pan-African Parliament, more so among so many respected, including the Vice President of this country, is a great honor. It's actually a pointer to the close interlinkages that ought to be between the African Court and the Pan-African Parliament within the continental governance framework. We, in fact, are listed in the Constitutive Act of the AU. We are listed, the Court, the Pan-African Parliament, as organs of the African Union. We appear together in the legislative acts of the continent. I want to say this is my first time to stand here and address this August gathering to convey a message of solidarity. But I do not feel new. It's my first time, but I feel as if I've been here several times because I've met on this bench, I've met more than half in other spaces, especially at the AU in Addis Ababa. And only on Saturday, I was the president, and not only Saturday, actually, for several days until Saturday. The president, vice president, and a few others, we were together in Addis Ababa, attending the various meetings of the AU, the Executive Council of Foreign Ministers, and heads of state, which ended last night. We were together. So I feel very much at home. I think you all are aware that in terms of what we do, our works are very much interlinked. We are so intricately linked. And if you look at the theme, integrating the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems. As Pan-African Parliament, when we look at this, when we talk of integration, then we say in our own protocol establishing Pan-African Parliament, one of our functions is to integrate, ensure coordination, integration of policies, laws, and programs of the Union. So in this theme, the Pan-African Parliament sees itself running and ensuring that the national parliament are aware of what the court is pursuing, even up the level of municipalities. So we are one, and let's work as one. And where there are certain pronouncements, judicial pronouncements, that may require legislation on the continent, we are positioned in terms of the protocol of Pan-African Parliament to develop model laws. We don't, at the moment, pass laws that are binding on member states or that are enforceable in member states, but we do pass model laws on which we share with member states and show them the good practice that they should move towards. And in that regard, we support and work closely with the court. You are all aware that when the OAU, which we now call the AU, was formed in 1963, until 2004, the OAU operated only as an executive. They are only the executive, yet in any governance architecture, you always need the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. But the OAU operated for so many years. But they realized, our founding fathers realized that we need a court. The OAU cannot operate without a court, an African court. And in January 25, 2004, this court was launched. But coincidentally, in March, the same year, it was January, the court charged. In March, Pan-African Parliament. So these are an integral and inseparable arms of governance, in the more so at the continental level. And we share a lot as independent institutions within the union with the court. And we are still growing. We are both growing. You heard civil society presentation here, lamenting the fact that some states are still reluctant to ratify so that we strengthen the court. It's the same with our parliament. There are states that say we need a parliament, but no, if they have restrictive powers, we may get finished. I don't know how they can get finished. They will remain there anyway. We are behind. The European Union has gone that far, but it appears we are still reluctant in Africa, but I think we'll get there. And I want to urge the court that, as the civil society have mentioned, there are still aspects of your powers and ultimate functions that are yet to be realized. And I want to say the same with PAP. We should continue knocking on the doors of especially Executive Council and the Assembly, that we reach that level. We should not tire and say, no, they don't want. We should remind them and remind them and remind them. And as they say, a man is not finished when he is defeated. He is finished when he quits. So we should not quit. I thank you and wish you a fruitful year ahead in integrating the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, President of the Pan-African Parliament, for the wonderful call at the end of his speech. A man will only be defeated or finished when he quits, not when he's defeated. I think it's a wonderful call to every dignitary attending this opening of the 2023 judicial year. I now understand that Professor Franz Vleyon is represented by Liliot Kuvea, and I think this speaker is online. And I wish to welcome this representative of Professor Vleyon. Welcome to take the floor.
Very good morning. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, and thank you so much to the African Court on Human and People's Rights for extending this invitation to the Center for Human Rights. I am standing in for Professor Franz Vleyon, who is unable to attend at this time because of another engagement in Geneva. My name is Lloyd Kuvea, and I'm Assistant Director at the Center for Human Rights. The Vice President of Tanzania, Honorable Dr. Philip Mpango, the President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Lady Justice Iman Aboud, the Vice President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Justice Blaise Chikaya, representatives of African Union mechanisms present, Excellencies, ambassadors, distinguished delegates, and friends. The Center for Human Rights is indeed honored and privileged to deliver this goodwill statement and to participate in the 2022 judicial opening of the African Court on Human and People's Rights on the theme integrating the jurisprudence of regional and international mechanisms at the national level. Indeed, we want to thank the President of the Court, Justice Iman Aboud, for her leadership of the African Court. And as the Center for Human Rights, we are quite pleased to note the improvement and developments at the African Court. Indeed, we have seen great jurisprudence being developed by the African Court and being handed down for guidance, not just at the regional level, but also at the domestic level, where member states and the courts at the national level can and indeed will apply the rich jurisprudence that the African Court is currently developing. As the Center for Human Rights, we are quite pleased with the collaboration and partnership that we enjoy with the African Court. One of the things that we have done, the initiatives that we have done, is that every year we send interns and legal researchers to the African Court to assist the court in research work and also assist the judges who are in the process of developing rich jurisprudence for our continent. As the Center for Human Rights, we are also pleased to inform the court that we are in the process of, in the next 3 years, of training lawyers and civil society activists to bring cases to the African Court so that we may continue to have more jurisprudence being developed by the court. We will also be embarking on a ratification campaign of the African Court Protocol and also to get states to sign the Article 34.6 declaration to allow individual access to the court. We have also been involved in case discussions of the jurisprudence of the African Court over the past year, and this process will continue so that we raise awareness of the rich jurisprudence that is being handed down and developed at the African Court. I would like to take this opportunity to now look at the theme of this year and really say that indeed, as the Center for Human Rights, it is our hope that national courts will apply and will consider the jurisprudence that is being developed at the African Court and seek guidance therefrom. Would like to take note of the fact that the Constitutional Court of South Africa, which is the highest court, in 2020, in the case of the New Nation movement versus the President of the Republic of South Africa and others in 2020, declared that the Electoral Court in South Africa is unconstitutional to the extent that it requires that adult citizens may be elected to the National Assembly only through membership of political parties. So in that particular case, indeed, the Constitutional Court of South Africa was guided by the jurisprudence developed by the African courts in the case of Reverend Mutikila versus the Republic of Tanzania, the famous independent candidates case. So it is our hope that other jurisdictions and other national courts will follow the example set by the South African Constitutional Court in applying the jurisprudence of the African Court. Honorable and distinguished delegates, I would like to end my goodwill message by also stating that we are pleased as the Center for Human Rights with the launch of the African Human Rights Yearbook for 2020-2022. That yearbook is an initiative of the three mechanisms of the African Union, the African Court on Human and People's Rights, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of Children, who decided to jointly publish the African Human Rights Yearbook to spearhead studies of the promotion and protection of human rights, and also to provide a platform and forum for the constructive engagement about the African human rights system with academics, with human rights NGOs, with national human rights institutions, and other commentators on the continent. This volume 6 of 2022 yearbook contains about 17 contributions, and it has got 3 sections where it looks at the jurisprudence and practice of the court and aspects of the African human rights system and the African Union human rights standards. The second aspect of the yearbook looks at strengthening resilience and strengthening health and social protection systems, which was the theme of the African Union last year. The third and final aspect of that yearbook is looking at case commentaries. So thank you so much. We want to thank again the African Court and wish you that this year of 2023 we will continue to witness the development of rich jurisprudence. We will continue to witness access to the court for NGOs, for individuals, for victims of human rights violations, and state parties. And we wish the African Court continued success as it continues to engage states and also raise awareness about its work, and also encourage state parties, states on the continent who have not yet ratified the African Court Protocol to do so. We wish you fruitful deliberations today and throughout the year. Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel, and thank you so much, African Court, for giving the Center for Human Rights the opportunity to give its goodwill message. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kuvea, for your remarks and your goodwill message, which is equally appealing. I now wish to call upon the Honorable Justice Nestor Kayobera, President of the East African Court of Justice, to deliver his goodwill message. My Lord, welcome.
Oh, okay. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Philip Mpango, the Minister of Justice, Constitutional Affairs, my brother Lumbaro, and the government officials from the United Republic of Tanzania, nimtambue mkuu wa mkoa, kakangu Mongela, the Relative Justice, Iman Aboud, my good sister, the President of this court, member of the judiciary, international judiciaries, and the judiciary from Tanzania, nimtambue Jaji mkuu wa Zanzibar na Jaji kiongozi wa Tanzania, and the members of the judiciary of Tanzania, the Vice President of the East African Court of Justice, Sauda Mujasiri, the Justice of the Appeal, who are present. Naomba msimame, the Judge of East African Court of Justice. Tafadhali. Yes. Asante sana. Members of the legislatures, international na East African community, nimtambue kaka yangu Joseph Nakautimana, the Speaker of EALA, and all protocols observed. The Honorable Lady Justice, the East African Court of Justice is grateful for your invitation.
tumekuwa tukifanya kazi vizuri na mahakama ya Afrika ya haki ya Afrika, and we are grateful of the good relationship between your court and our court. The purpose is the same, is protection of human and the people's rights. It is true that the East African Court of Justice does not have express human rights jurisdiction, but for the 22 years in existence, we have determined a number of cases which also touch the issue of human rights. Whenever there is a complaint relating to interpretation, application, and compliance with the treaty, there is nothing which can forbid us to come in. And we have been doing it for the last 22 years. Kwa hiyo tunakushukuru sana Mheshimiwa Rais wa Mahakama na tunakutakia kila la heri. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Honorable President of the East African Court of Justice. It's a very loud and clear message of cooperation and in the judicial system and cooperation between both courts. Thank you so much. I now want to call upon the Honorable Lady Justice Siofra Oleri, President of the European Court of Human Rights, and this one is joining us through video link. She's most welcome. Madam Oleri, most welcome.
Honorable President Imani Daoud Aboud, Judges of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, it's a joy and an honor as President of the European Court of Human Rights to convey my very best wishes and firm support to you on the occasion of the opening of your judicial year, the second in your history. Our tripartite cooperation with your court and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights was formalized only 5 years ago, and yet we should be very proud of what we've achieved so far. 2 declarations signed by court presidents in San Jose and Kampala in 2018 and 19, 2 international human rights fora, and a 3rd planned this year. Indeed, I'm particularly looking forward to seeing many of you in Costa Rica in May, an annual joint law report highlighting key case law and encouraging more cross-references between our courts. A number of bilateral visits have also taken place during these 5 years. It was our great pleasure to host in Strasbourg last October President Aboud and a delegation of judges and registry from your court. Our bilateral meeting demonstrated that we have very much in common and also much to learn from one another, both as regards legal questions, but also with respect to practical challenges in our daily work as courts. How do we deal expeditiously with the applications on our docket? How do we draft high-quality judgments? How do we ensure case law consistency? How do international courts ensure that their judgments are respected? How do we help to embed our case law in national systems? Indeed, that last question is the very theme of your discussions today. Dear President, dear judges, our 2 courts have been entrusted with fundamental tasks, that is, ensuring observance of the rights and freedoms guaranteed in the African Charter and the European Convention, respectively. Our court's role is to interpret and apply the European Convention, but that convention cannot be interpreted in a vacuum. And therefore we take into account and draw inspiration from relevant international material, including judgments from your court. Dialogue between regional human rights mechanisms is one of the most powerful tools to enhance international human rights protection. This is why the European Court is very much committed to our institutional cooperation, and we will do the utmost to ensure its success. My very best wishes to all of you on this important day.
Thank you so much, Honorable Lady Justice Oleri, for your remarks. I'm now privileged to invite my brother, Ambassador Salah Hamad, Head of AGA Secretariat of the African Union Commission. Ambassador Hamad, you're welcome to take the floor.
Thank you very much indeed, my dear brother. I'm just trying to switch on my camera. Well, technology sometimes is not working.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, my brother Emmanuel, for giving me the floor. Your Excellency, Dr. Philip Isidore Mbango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Your Excellency, the Minister of Justice, ministers, officials from the government of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Judges of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Your Excellencies, delegates of AU member states and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Honorable members of the African Governance Platform, particularly the Chairperson of the African Governance Platform, the Chairperson of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, and the President of the Pan-African Parliament, and the Chairperson of the African Committee of Experts on the Right and Welfare of the Child, distinguished representative of regional and national courts, distinguished representative of UN system, the EU Human Rights Court, as well as the Inter-American Court, distinguished representative of National Human Rights Commission, think tanks, CSOs, media, and academia, the Honorable Registrar and colleagues from the Registry of the Court, colleagues from the African Union Commission, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol duly observed. On behalf of His Excellency, Ambassador Bankole Adoyin, the African Union Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, and the Rapporteur of the African Governance Platform of the African Governance Architecture, I feel greatly honored and privileged to be afforded this opportunity to address this August Assembly on this auspicious occasion of the opening of the 2023 Judicial Year of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, under the theme integrating the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems. Let me begin by recognizing and also by thanking His Excellency, the Vice President, and the President and the government and the people of the United Republic of Tanzania for hosting the African Court and other African Union mechanisms, and also for supporting the African Union agenda in the area of human and people's rights promotion and protection. I also wish to congratulate Her Excellency and Her Honor, Lady Justice Imani Aboud, President of the African Court, together with her colleagues, honorable judges of the African Court, for organizing this important event and also for inviting the AGA-APSA Secretariat to deliver this goodwill message. I can't proceed without recognizing the work of the members of the Registry of the African Court, the Honorable Registrar and his staff, for the hard work to bring the African Court closer to the African people and making the African Court more popular and more known to the African citizens. Your commitment and your hard work for the promotion and protection of human and people's rights on the continent has been noticed with great effect. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed collectively to promote and protect human and people's rights, we must admit the challenges faced by Africa and the African people. This indeed requires us to focus our eyes on how best to advance rights that address underdevelopment, poverty, inequality, marginalization on our continent. As we proceed with the implementation of Agenda 2063, it's also important that we look into the well-being and the welfare of the African citizen so we can collectively build the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve. We've been working closely with our partners to promote political and civil rights, but we need to also focus on some of the rights that are closer to the African people, some of the rights that are needed by our African people: the right to food, the right to health, the right to clean water, the right to sanitation, the right to health, the right to education, housing, and clothing. These are the rights that are demanded by our citizens, and these are the rights that we need to focus on before we move to other rights. The African continent has witnessed decades of numerous human rights challenges resulting from a diverse range of factors. But the main factors that can surface on the radar screen are poverty, corruption, and of course, political exclusion of marginalized groups. That is why the African citizens today are looking at the African human rights system as a system that will bring justice, fairness, and promote human and people's rights at the national as well as regional and continental level. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this event is extremely important, and as AGA ABSA Secretariat, we wish to commend the African Court, a member of the African Governance Platform, with its work, and to recommit ourselves to work closely to support the court with everything that is possible within the umbrella of the African platform. However, it is important that in our campaign to ensure ratification, implementation, and domestication of human rights instruments in Africa, that we need to bring the African citizens along with us. We need to make them aware of the existence of all of these instruments and all of these mechanisms. Ownership by the African citizens will certainly lead to universal ratification of all AU instruments that are addressing human and people's rights. To conclude, I wish to once again thank the people and the government of the United Republic of Tanzania for supporting the African Union agenda in the area of human rights, and also to praise and thank Her Excellency, the Lady Justice Amani Aboud, President of the African Court, and her team, and her colleagues and the team of the Judiciary for the hard work in promoting the African Court and making the African Court an important and effective mechanism to protect the rights of the African citizens. Congratulations, asante sana. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Hamad, for your goodwill message. The next in line is the Honorable Teofan Nikema, Special Rapporteur on Child Justice, African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. I hope he's connected and he's online. Honorable Nikema, welcome to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellence, Dr. Philippe Isidore Mpango, Vice President de la République
Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania.
Honorable Juge Imani Daoud Aboud, Président de la Cour africaine.
The African Court.
Excellences, honorables, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs, tous en vos rangs et qualités respectives, tout protocole observé. Honorable juge Imani Daoud Aboud, honorable de la Cour, l'honorable Joseph Ndaye Singh, président du comité africain sur les droits et le bien-être de l'enfant, s'excuse de ne pouvoir se joindre à vous et m'a demandé de le représenter en ma qualité de membre spécial pour la justice pour enfants du dit comité. Permettez-moi de saluer la Cour pour le travail considérable qu'elle accomplit pour garantir la mise en œuvre des droits inscrits dans la Charte africaine des droits de l'homme et du peuple pour l'organisation de la rentrée judiciaire 2023. Le thème « Intégration de la jurisprudence des mécanismes régionaux internationaux de protection des droits de l'homme dans les systèmes nationaux » à sa pertinence nous interpelle à plus d'un titre. Il s'inscrit dans les priorités de notre continent et confirme le travail de la Cour aux objectifs et principes notés par l'acte constitutif de l'Union africaine et l'agenda 2053, aspirant à un continent de culture universelle de respect des droits de l'homme, de justice et l'état de droit. Il redynamise le processus d'intégration régionale entrepris depuis 2015 par l'Union africaine. Il offre une opportunité pour les systèmes nationaux de mieux connaître l'importante expérience jurisprudentielle des juridictions africaines et sous-régionales. Je salue également les organes de l'Union africaine, la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples, les communautés économiques régionales, les États membres et les organisations et institutions pour leurs efforts inlassables dans la promotion et la protection des droits de l'homme et des peuples en Afrique générale et des droits de l'enfant en particulier. Il est évident que la mise en œuvre des décisions du comité dépend de sa collaboration non seulement avec la Cour et la Commission, mais aussi avec d'autres structures et organes de l'Union africaine. Donc, par conséquent, une plus grande synergie entre nos trois organes en charge des droits de l'homme spécial pour favoriser une plus grande intégration juridique continentale. La retraite conjointe de nos trois organes à Maputo en 2022 a été un forum d'échange sur nos méthodes et procédures de travail, sur les questions de fond et opérationnelles et sur les meilleures pratiques pour améliorer notre productivité. Des domaines de collaboration dans le cadre de nos mandats respectifs ont été identifiés. Il est porté au renforcement de la complémentarité, de la synergie, ainsi qu'à l'harmonisation des jurisprudences. Le comité reste fermement attaché à œuvrer davantage avec la Cour et la Commission pour la consolidation de cette complémentarité et la jurisprudence. Dans cette logique, le comité a mis en place une base de données de décisions de justice pertinentes en matière de droits de l'enfant dans chaque État partie. Permettez-moi quand même de signaler de bonnes pratiques qui sont déjà en cours. Et à titre d'exemple, notre comité se réfère à la jurisprudence de la Cour et de la Commission dans sa procédure d'examen des communications qui lui sont présentées. Notre comité applique la doctrine de lis pendens en s'assurant que la communication devant elle n'est ni pendante devant la Commission ou la Cour, ni réglée par celle-ci. La Cour, dans une décision du 1er novembre 2022, a déclaré irrecevable une requête au motif qu'elle concerne une affaire réglée par le comité lors de sa 39e session. Dans le cadre de nos missions, dans les États,
Within the framework
on a
of
pu
our
également
nation,
constater que la
in the
Charte
States,
est invoquée
we have
devant les
also
tribunaux
noted that
nationaux,
the charter
que le
is
juge de
referred
l'enfant se
to in
réfère aux
national courts,
dispositions de celle-ci.
and the judges dealing with child cases refer to
La
this.
Cour, sous le leadership de l'honorable juge
Under the
Imani
leadership of Judge
a
Imani
demandé
Aboud,
l'amendement
the
de
court
l'article 5.1 du
requested
protocole instituant
that
la
Article
Cour pour
5.1 of
inclure
the
le
protocol
comité parmi les
should
organes
be
et
amended to
habilités pour saisir
include
directement
the
la Cour.
committee amongst the organs that are entitled
Cette
to
initiative
seize the court.
est extrêmement
This
indépendante
initiative is indeed very
et
important,
cimentera davantage la collaboration
and
des organes
it
de
will
l'Union
enhance
africaine
the
chargés
collaboration
des droits
amongst the organs of the African Union, which are charged with the
Pour
protection
terminer,
of rights.
honorable juge Imani
To end, Honorable
Daoud
Judge
Aboud,
Imani Aboud,
honorable juge de la Cour,
honorable judges of the court,
au nom du comité
on behalf
d'experts
of the committee
sur
of
les droits
experts
et le bien-être de
on the
l'enfant,
rights and
je vous
welfare of the
souhaite
child,
un plein
I wish
succès
you
pour l'année judiciaire
total
2023.
success in your
Je formule
judicial
les
year
vœux que nos
2023,
échanges
and it is, I
découlent
hope,
des solutions et des initiatives
that there will be
permettant
further
de relever les
initiatives and
défis des
cooperation
droits de l'homme
which
en
will
Afrique
make us to meet the
et
challenges of human rights in
et
Africa,
enfin pour construire une Afrique
and
digne des
lastly,
enfants.
so that we'll be able to build an Africa which will be worthy of that of our children.
Je vous remercie pour votre aimable
I
attention.
would like to thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Honorable Nikiema, for your message, for your goodwill message. That marks the end of goodwill messages. And before we listen to the opening speech of 2023 judicial year, we will ask the brass band to entertain us with an instrumental, soft instrumental, as we prepare for the opening speech of the 2023 judicial year by the Honorable Lady Justice Imani Daoud Aboud, President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brass Band, for that entertainment. It is now my singular honor to invite the Honorable Lady Justice Imani Daoud Aboud, President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, to deliver her opening speech. Ma'am, you're most welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. His Excellency Dr. Philip Mpango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, His Excellency Minister of Constitutional and Legal Affairs, His Excellency Regional Commissioner of Arusha Region, our host, Honorable Chief Justice of the High Court of Zanzibar, present here, Honorable Principal Judge of the High Court of Tanzania, His Excellency Blaise Chikaya, Vice President of the African Court, His Excellency President and Vice President of the East African Court of Justice, Chairperson of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, President of the Pan-African Parliament, members of the African Diplomatic Group, Your Excellencies, Presidents of International and Regional Courts, Excellencies, Government Official present, Honorable Judges of the African Court, Honorable Judges of International, Regional, and National Courts, Honorable Registrar of the African Court, Honorable Chief Registrar of the Judicial of Tanzania, members of the media present, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, all the protocol observed. First and foremost, allow me on behalf of the African Court and on my own personal behalf to express my sincere appreciation to the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, represented by His Excellency Dr. Philip Mpango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, for accepting the invitation of the African Court on Human and People's Rights to attend this important event and to be the guest of honor. The court enjoys a very good relationship with the government of Tanzania, and your presence here today, Your Excellency Vice President, is a testimony that to that cordial relationship. On behalf of the African Court and on my own behalf, I welcome the entire African people to the opening of the 2023 judicial year of their courts. We are very honored to have you share this moment of us. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues and guests. Last year, the African Court decided to institutionalize the official opening of its judicial year, a ceremony that will mark the opening of the court's business for each year, with the main objective of enhancing its visibility and engagement with stakeholders by convening a solemn ceremony at the commencement of its first court sessions. The theme of that inaugural edition of the opening of judicial year was the African Court and the African Want. The theme was inspired by the slogans of the African Union Agenda of 2063, the African we want. Building on the last year's theme, the court adopted the theme for this year to be the integrating the jurisprudence of the region and international human rights mechanisms, international systems. This theme is very timely because it comes 16 years after the establishment of the court, 20 years after the establishment of the African Union, and 10 years into the first 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063. The theme seeks to reposition the debate about the very raison d'etre, not only on the establishment of the African Court, but the entire African human rights system and the relevance and or contribution of the African Court to the new African dispensations. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I do not pretend to have solutions to the issues I have raised within the context of the theme of this year. However, my statement is a call to action for all stakeholders on the continent, especially member states, judges and lawyers appearing before national and international courts, to seriously have introspective analysis of where we come from, where we are, and where we are going in terms of promotion and protection of human rights, and how our individual and collective actions and decision can have contributed to making the African we want. In 1963, when our founding leaders established the Organization of African Unity, they emphasized that freedom, equality, justice, peace, dignity, and are essential for the achievement of the legitimate aspirations of the African peoples. 50 years after the AU was established, these legitimate aspirations have been restated and are firmly entrenched into African Blueprint Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063 contains the views expressed by the African people into 7 key legitimate aspirations which is fully accomplished which, if fully accomplished, will lead to an integrated, prosperous, and peace Africa driven by its own citizens, representing a dynamic force in the international arena. That is the African we want. Excellencies, just a reminder that 7 aspirations of Agenda 2063 are prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development, an integrated continent politically united and based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism and the vision of African Renaissance, an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect of human rights, justice, and the rule of law, a peaceful and secure Africa, an Africa with strong culture identity, common heritage, shared values and ethics, and an Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of African people, especially its women and youth, and caring for children, and an Africa as a strong, united, resilient, and influential global player and partner. Excellencies, significantly, the objective of the African Union and the aspiration of Agenda 2063 are linked by common thread, the human rights thread. None of the objectives of the African Union or aspirations under Agenda 2063 can be achieved without a strong human rights foundation. Our prosperity, unity, integration, development, security, peace, including our standing on the international stage, are intertwined with the human rights norms and standards we put in place. Excellencies, given the intrinsic relationship between the human rights, integration, peace, and development, the role of the judiciary, and in particular the African Court, in our case, is extremely important. History teaches us that an independent judiciary is indispensable for the socio-economic and political development of any community. Aspiration 3 of the Agenda 2063, coupled with the vision of the African Court, that is, an Africa with viable human rights culture, are crucial to the realization of the objective of the African Union and all the aspirations in the agenda. In that agenda, the mission of the court is to enhance, through judicial decisions, the protective mandate of the African Commission by strengthening the human rights protection system in Africa. Since the establishment of the court, some 16 years ago, it has rendered over 200 decisions. These decisions deal with a wide range of sensitive social, political, and economic issues that characterize the day-to-day lives of ordinary Africans. They include issues such as election, fair trial, nationality, participation in government, indigenous population, etc. The jurisprudence of the court on these issues have developed a corpus of principles and established standards that seeks to address human rights and related challenges of the continent. For example, in Tanganyika Law Society and Legal and Human Rights Center and relevant Christopher Mtikila versus Tanzania, the court dealt with a very delicate matter which affects most African countries, the right of independent candidates to stand for elections of all the levels. In application number 013 of 2017, Sebastian Ajavor versus Benin, the court dealt with the right to participation in government is protected by Article 13 of the Charter. In application 003 of 2017, the famous case of APD versus Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, the court examines whether the composition of electoral body was representative enough to ensure that citizens freely participate in the government of their country. The court has also developed jurisprudence with respect to other rights, including the right for fair trial, right of indigenous populations, freedom of expression, the protection of journalists, the right to nationality, and other rights. By developing jurisprudence of these and other sensitive matter, the court is setting standards and supranational level that can be used by African countries to resolve human rights and related disputes on the domestic level. By developing these standards, it is expected that member states and other national institutions and stakeholders would integrate them in their laws, policies, programs, so as to develop an African human rights system based on common standards that can lead to the African with viable human rights culture. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the court has delivered several landmark judgments on a wider range of issues. However, a quick look at the African legal and legislative landscape revealed that most African countries still adopt, maintain, and implement laws contrary to the spirit and letters of the judgment already delivered by the court. One of the reasons why the court was established was to help establish standards of human rights issues that should be followed across the continent. Therefore, it should be the case that issues settled by the court through its judgments should be of relevance to countries other than respondent states. Given that the African Court is a supranational court, the expectation is that its decision would resonate beyond the respondent state and prompt other countries to amend their laws and policies to conform to the establishment of human rights standards. Judgments of the court should serve as the basis for legal and all judicial reforms to make sure that their laws are consistent with the Charter and in accordance with these decisions of the court. This would then operate to prevent similar allegations being made against the other states parties of the AU. It is also expected that these judgments will be invoked by advocates and relied on by judges at the domestic level when dealing with the cases of allegations of human rights violations. The court is pleased to note that the implication of its case law has found some form of expression in this recent adjudication in some domestic fora. For example, the High Court of Lesotho and the High Court of Kenya have referred to the cases of Konate versus Burkina Faso in dealing with the freedom of expression, as none of these two countries was party to the freedom of expression cases adjudicated by the court. The practice portrayed a trend to prevent and preempt implementation, that is, to avoid being condemned by the court in potential similar cases. Overall, however, the level of integration of the jurisprudence of the international and regional courts into national system is not encouraging, to say the least. Several factors may account for this low level of integration. This includes, but not limited to, the fact that there are very few countries that have domesticated the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and other human rights instruments, lack of awareness about human rights instruments, let alone jurisprudence of international human rights courts, like lack of awareness of the existence of this court or how to litigate before it, lack of measures put at the national level to facilitate such integration, and the absence of the mechanism of the AU level to facilitate integration. Under Article 30 of the protocol, all state members undertake to comply with the judgments in any case to which they are parties, within the time stipulated by the court and to guarantee its execution. Under Article 29 of the protocol, the Executive Council of the African Union has been entrusted with the monitoring of the execution of the judgment of the court. However, while Article 29 of the protocol alludes the role of the Executive Council of the African Union, the provision itself is not prescriptive enough of the actions, steps that the Executive Council can take or not take in discharging its role. And so far, the Executive Council has not put anything in place. That's a pity. Excellencies, there is a lot that needs to be done in Africa, in particular member states, to benefit from the very rich jurisprudence of the international and regional human rights bodies, including the African Court. First, there's the need for member states to recognize the very important role of the African Court in the realization of the objectives of the African Union Agenda and Agenda 2063. Secondly, member states must put in place concrete measures and the supra and well as national level to monitor implementation of the decision of the international bodies. These measures may include, but not limited to, appointment of focal points, making such a decision directly implemented or implementable at the domestic level. Thirdly, there are need to very wide dissemination of judgments of international human rights bodies and training for lawyers and magistrates, judges on the possibility of incorporating such judgments before their domestic systems. Fourth, there's a need to provide technical assistance to member states that may be willing but not able to undertake the necessary reforms to be able to implement or incorporate court decisions. To this end, the court calls on the African Union, in particular the Specialized Technical Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs, to urgently finalize consideration of the framework document on compliance and monitoring of court judgments, which provides for establishment of human rights fund to facilitate technical assistance. Within the framework of the biannual judicial dialogue between the African Court and national judiciaries, measures are already being taken to ensure better collaboration and synergies. In this regard, the court is developing an online human rights courses for the judges and magistrates in the continent. Excellencies, the court recognizes that its mandate is to complement and supplement the work of the member states are doing at the domestic level to promote and protect human rights and people's rights. The court is not and cannot replace the domestic institutions charged with this existence, as the primary responsibility for the promotion and protection of human rights resides with the member states. The effective promotion and protection of human rights and people's rights is a collective responsibility. It requires all stakeholders to play their part. Member states are duty bearers hold the most responsibility, that are the ones who negotiate, adopt, ratify, domesticate international human rights instruments. It is a member state that sets up domestic and international human rights institutions to ensure these institutions help them implement the human rights obligation they have undertaken under regional and international human rights instruments. Again, it is a member state that puts in place measures to implement decisions, judgments, and recommendations of human rights bodies. It is a member state that fund and elect members of the court and determine the court's budget, structures, and other resources to enable its discharge its mandate. The role of member states in this promotion and protection of human rights, therefore, cannot be overemphasized. The success or failure of the African Court, therefore, depends to a very large extent on the level of cooperation that the courts received from the member states. Excellencies, let me end by saying, long live Africa. Long live the African Union. Long live the African Court. Asanteni sana. It is now my singular honor to invite His Excellency Dr. Philip Mpango, the Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania and guest of honor, for this solemn ceremony to deliver the key address. Karibu sana Mheshimiwa.
Please be seated. Honorable Lady Justice Imani Aboud, President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Dr. Damas Ndumbaro, Member of Parliament, Minister of Constitutional and Legal Affairs, the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable John Mongela, the Regional Commissioner, Arusha, Excellencies, Ambassadors, and High Commissioners accredited to the United Republic of Tanzania, Excellencies, Heads of Organs and Institutions of the African Union accredited to the United Republic of Tanzania, the Honorable Justices on the bench, Honorable Judges present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is with great pleasure and honor that I join you in this august occasion to officiate the opening of the 2023 judicial year of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. On behalf of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, and on my own behalf, I wish to welcome you all to Tanzania and to this beautiful city of Arusha, particularly to all our guests who have traveled from across the continent and beyond, as well as those joining us virtually. Karibuni sana. Her Excellency President Samia had wished to personally address this August Assembly, but she could not be here due to other national commitments. However, the President directed me to assure you that she attaches great importance to the work of the court and commends the achievements made so far in pursuit of an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law, as articulated by Aspiration 3 of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the founding fathers of the then Organization of African Unity, OAU, among other things, had a vision to establish an organization based on the foundation of respect for human rights. This vision was translated into reality when the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and its subsequent protocol on the establishment of an African Court on Human and People's Rights came into force. Tanzania is honored to host the African Court on Human and People's Rights because to us, the hosting of this court
is, among others, a reflection of our solemn commitment to adhere to the basic principles of equality, justice, and respect for human rights and dignity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the convening of this event gives us an opportunity to assess what has been accomplished and address the challenges of the court in performing its functions. In realizing its objectives, the African Court on Human and People's Rights has achieved a lot over the years since its inception. The court has delivered landmark judgments, resolved a number of human rights issues at national, sub-regional, and continental level, engaged various stakeholders through judicial diplomacy to deliberate on important issues and challenges facing the court, and has continued to advocate for the promotion and protection of human rights. I wish to take this opportunity to thank the committed and trusted officials of the court and other stakeholders who have devoted themselves to stand and champion the triumph of justice and legacy of human rights in our continent. Also, I wish to applaud the court for working tirelessly to continue intergenerational dialogue through various initiatives, including the facilitation of academic placements and internships for young professionals, continued engagement and legal professionals from member states and their training on the work of the court. This indeed has had a tremendous impact on the visibility of the court in the continent while promoting and protecting human rights. I have also noted with satisfaction that as part of the conference, an intergenerational dialogue will be convened where different stakeholders, particularly academicians and young legal professionals, will have a chance to exchange views on how they can enhance their engagement with the jurisprudence of the national, regional, and continental mechanisms for human rights scholarship, advocacy, and litigation. It is laudable that the court is forward-looking in its legacy to equip young Africans, the young legal professionals and academicians with the tools they need to collaborate with the human rights work it undertakes. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, while we are optimistic with the achievements of the court, there are some glitches that the court needs to address in order for it to be relevant in the African context. And allow me to mention only a few. It has been a concern of some member states that this court is encroaching on their sovereignty by operating as an appellate court to adjudicate issues that are not under its jurisdiction. It is also a concern of some member states that some judgments and orders of the court are drawn without having due regard of the African context, as a result of which most of them remain unimplemented. And worse still, some member states have withdrawn their declarations and others are hesitant to make and deposit theirs. To address such glitches, it is my view that it is imperative for the court to abide to its mandate and respect the sovereignty of member states while appreciating the diversity of legal processes in the continent. I would also wish to encourage my dear sister, the incumbent president of the court, Her Ladyship Judge Imani Aboud, to continue her efforts to engage member states to discuss the challenges that affect the implementation of the court's mandate. I firmly believe that it is through dialogue between the court and member states that the intended objectives of the court can be realized. I wish to reaffirm that Tanzania remains committed to the mandate, objectives of the African Union, and the implementation of Agenda 2063. We are committed to build strong African institutions, including the African Court. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I find the choice of the theme of this event, which is integrating the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems, to be extremely relevant. However, I beg your indulgence in advance for what I'm going to say henceforth, because I am an economist, and I surely do not have the credentials even to merit as a bush lawyer. But fortunately, all of us, irrespective of our professional attire, have a right to human rights. Human rights are in principle universal, and some aspects thereof form part of customary international law. National systems vested with the responsibility to protect and promote human rights had always sought inspiration from national and supranational bodies with shared values and principles in dispensation of justice. The judiciary of Tanzania, which follows a common law tradition, is not restricted to making reference to the jurisprudence of a foreign court, and from time to time borrows precedents and doctrines from other countries under common law tradition. Hence, the integration of the jurisprudence of foreign judgments into Tanzanian judicial system is not a new phenomenon. With similarities born out of the colonial inheritance, our jurisprudence has sought for guidance, inspiration, and orientation in enacting and interpreting laws from other countries such as England, India, Canada, and others. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in cognizance of our role to promote human rights and as members of the international community, the United Republic of Tanzania has also subjected herself to the jurisdiction of the East African Court of Justice, established under the Treaty for the Establishment of the East African Community, as well as the African Court of Human and People's Rights, as founded under the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Furthermore, we have also signed, ratified, and domesticated a number of international human rights treaties. As a result, the Tanzania judiciary has delivered a number of landmark decisions on human rights, inspired by the jurisprudence and standards set by regional, continental, and international judicial and quasi-judicial institutions. For instance, in Civil Appeal number 204 of 2017, Attorney General versus Rebecca Gyumi, the Court of Appeal referred to the provisions of international treaties to determine the constitutionality of Section 13 and 17 of the Law of Marriage Act, Cap 29, revised edition 2002. In its judgment, the Court of Appeal was of the view that, and I quote, Tanzania is not an isolated island. It has from time to time been indebted to legal jurisprudence from other jurisdictions by ratifying and domesticating international, regional, and sub-regional instruments, or enacting laws as a means of acknowledging the outcry of the international community and taking action against violation of human rights, which includes the right of a girl child, end of the quote. Consequently, the Court of Appeal upheld the decision of the High Court that Section 13 and 17 of the Law of Marriage Act that subjected girls under the age of 18 years to marriage were unconstitutional. Excellencies, in this respect, I encourage judges, advocates, and academicians to continue advocating for integration of the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems. And this can be achieved through the following. First, by promoting and integrating the use of information and communication technology, ICT, in the court systems to enable judges and advocates to easily access legal materials from other jurisdictions. Second, by conducting judicial dialogues through symposiums and other platforms that will bring together participants from different jurisdictions. This may contribute to cross-fertilization of ideas between individuals of different legal systems and trigger integration of foreign jurisprudence with national systems when such individuals assume responsibilities in their respective jurisdictions. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, one challenge of integrating the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems is that some judges may arbitrarily make reference and rely on decisions that are favorable to their opinions while glossing over the domestic context, laws, and procedures. Under such circumstances, judges may refer certain decisions to justify their preconceived judgments instead of making an in-depth analysis of domestic precedents applicable to the case at hand. In this regard, while I encourage integration of jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms to national systems, I wish to point out the following cautions. First is preservation of the autonomy of the judiciary of national systems. Ideally, the integration should be done within the context of domestic laws and legal procedures. And in my simple understanding, the law requires that courts must carefully observe the similarities of the cases before applying the principles of a foreign court to a domestic situation. But second, the jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms is persuasive and not authoritative. As such, reference to a foreign jurisprudence is only for inspiration to enable advocates and judges determine a case at hand. Third, the judiciaries should undertake the integration process with a sense of common judicial identity and enterprise. It is the responsibility of the judiciaries to interpret the laws in the dispensation of justice. In this regard, integration of jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms should be done with the view to preserve the rule of law. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my remarks, let me take this opportunity to reiterate the commitment of the government of the United Republic of Tanzania to honor the Oster Agreement and to implement it to the letter and spirit. I also wish to reaffirm Tanzania's pledge and readiness to engage with all relevant stakeholders in order to preserve the African Court. It is our expectation that with that spirit of unity, in this opening of the judicial year, we will learn and subsequently come up with measures that will further enhance integration of jurisprudence of regional and international human rights mechanisms into national systems. I wish to take this opportunity to invite our visitors to take advantage of your presence here to sample Tanzania's unique attractions in and around Arusha region. Besides the exceptionally warm welcoming spirit of the people, cool weather conditions, and serenic view of Mount Meru, Arusha is home to many touristic attractions and gateway to safari destinations, including Mount Kilimanjaro, the rooftop of Africa, the Ngorongoro National Park, and the mighty Serengeti National Park that is famous for the wildebeest annual ritual migration. I guarantee you will enjoy and long to settle in Tanzania for good, or at least visit us every year. Karibuni tena. But believe me, the African Union could not have picked a better spot to host the African Court. I am sure Justice Blaise Chikaya, the Vice President of the African Court, and other officials of the court can attest to that, and that they are enjoying their stay. I wish to assure you that the government will continue to take good care of you and make sure you fulfill your obligations with ease. I also thank the Arusha Regional Commissioner and the people of Arusha for their generous hospitality to our guests. Asanteni sana. So with these remarks, it is now my singular honor and pleasure to declare the 2023 Judicial Year of the African Court on Human and People's Rights officially opened. I wish you fruitful deliberations and a very successful judicial year. Thank you again for your kind attention. Your Excellency.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania. At this juncture, on behalf of the judges, I am advised that the President of the African Court has prepared a special gift to our very distinguished guest of honor. And the gift is a set of 3 volumes of the African Court Law Reports. And Dr. Robert Eno, our registrar, will tell us the wealth, the legal wealth hidden in those volumes before they are handed over to His Excellency, the Vice President, Dr. Eno. Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Excellency, the Vice President, Excellencies, it is an unwritten practice here at the court that we do present something to our guest of honor, something symbolic to appreciate their coming to officiate such important ceremonies. This year we have as a present the first 3 volumes of our jurisprudence. And this is also very symbolic because it ties fittingly with the theme of the year, integrating regional and international human rights jurisprudence into national mechanisms. So in these 3 volumes, Excellency, you will find all the decisions of the African Court from 2008 to 2019. These 3 volumes are printed in hard copy, and they are also available online in soft copy. The 4th volume will be coming out soon, and we'll make it a point, Excellency, to make sure that the 4th volume gets to your desk as soon as it is printed. We have made it a point also, Excellency, because we know that to integrate the jurisprudence of the court, we must also make sure that it is published, it is disseminated, and well known. The jurisprudence cannot be integrated at the domestic level if it is not known at the domestic level. So we are happy, Excellency, with the remarks that you've made. We've taken note. I'm sure the judges have also taken note. But it is our pleasure to hand this important publication to you. We know it is being handed at the highest level, and we are confident, given the commitment and undertaking you've indicated, that Tanzania is committed to human rights as it has always been. There'll be a way, because there is the will to integrate the jurisprudence of the court. It is therefore my pleasure to invite the Honorable President of the court to come forward to officially hand over this to the Honorable Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Madam President. You can lead. You can direct. Okay.
Thank you so much, Honorable President of the Court, for the gift given to our distinguished guest of honor for purposes of facilitating the implementation of the theme of the day. It's now my singular honor to invite the Vice President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Honorable Justice Blaise Alphonse Chikaya, for his vote of thanks. Honorable Vice President, welcome to take
Excellence, Dr.
Excellency Felix Izopango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable George Imani Aboud, President of the African Court of Human and People's Rights, Dr. Damas Daniel Onurago, President of Consular Affairs of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable John Wangala, Regional Commissioner of Arusha, Your Excellencies Ambassadors, and High Commissioners accredited to the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Sophia Olmi, President of the European Court of Human Rights, and all other distinguished invitees who are taking part in this ceremony. Honorable Judge Ricardo Perez Marique, President of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, Honorable Judges of the African Court, Your Excellencies, Heads of Organs and Institutions of the African Union, Honorable Judge Nestor Kambera, President of the East African Court of Justice, Honorable Justice Lombe Sakumba, President of the COMESA Court of Justice, Honorable George Graciela Gatti Santana, President of the Residual Mechanism of United Nations Courts, Honorable Kwamine Manu, President of the Human Rights Commission and Good Governance of the Republic of Tanzania, Your Excellency Ambassador Salah Am, Interim Head of the African Governance Architecture and the Human Rights Expert, Honorable Heads of companies and human rights institutions of Tanzania, Mr. Kari Abdul Bagi, President of the Pan-African Lawyers Union, Madam Sophia Ebi, Coordinator of the Coalition for an Effective African Court. Ladies and gentlemen, this type of ceremonies, such important ceremonies, cannot take place with full cooperation except through the collaboration of the host country. Through these words, on behalf of the court and on behalf of the president of this court, Madam Aboud, and all the other judges of the court, I would like to extend our thanks to all those who have taken part in this ceremony. And this thanks will go naturally to our distinguished host, the Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Philip Isidore Pango, who has indeed graced this occasion with his presence. We would therefore like to pray that he extends to President Samia Suluhu Hassan our sincere thanks for the participation of Tanzania and the attention which she shows to the activities of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. We also invite you to the next activity which will follow in our program, that is our work, which will take place this afternoon on the integration of the jurisprudence of regional mechanisms and international mechanisms into the national systems of member states. It is through these few words which I had to say before you that I would like to reiterate the thanks of the African Court for your full participation in this opening ceremony and the launching of the judicial year, the judicial year, in the year 2023, I have corrected myself, in the year 2023, the judicial year in 2023 of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. I would therefore say to all of you, Asante Sana, and thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Vice President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, for the vote of thanks. It's now my singular honor and pleasure to announce the two activities remaining on the program. We will now be going for a group photo, and we'll have two photos only. One is going to be our very distinguished guest of honor with the judges alone. And the second one is going to be the guest of honor, the judges of the African Court, and the government officials, and the judges of the East African Court of Justice, and all the delegates who attended this opening. And I kindly request my colleague Chatba to lead our judges first to the venue where the photo is going to be taken, and then the guest of honor will meet them there while they are already staged for the photo.